I'm a person that's a strong believer in childbearing. That couples, married couples, now should have multiple children. Uh, should you have them if you can afford them? Of course. But if the family dynamic was still currently a mainstay amongst the people, this whole being able to afford kids and all that kind of stuff really wouldn't be an issue if you think about it. And when I say that, I mean like if let's say you got a family, husband and wife, they have kids and they live in neighborhoods. Let's say they have a home, like a house, actual house, or even they stay in an apartment complex. But yet other family members, others, siblings like brothers and sisters, cousins, everyone living together or living around each other, or just people, let's just say talking about, FBAs, black people living around each other, helping each other. It really wouldn't be an issue as long as the family dynamic, which includes and is spearheaded and headed by the man of the house, the father figure, the husband, that would eliminate a lot of problems. So that when you have a bunch of kids, yeah, it might be tough, but we all got each other to fall back on. When you don't have that dynamic, when there's no strong male figure, and when men are just missing, period, when single parenthood is being promoted throughout the family, throughout the government, especially with government programs that pretty much promotes single parenting to where you can get housing, food, insurance, money, things of that nature. As long as you don't have a man in the house, it kind of hurts that to the point to where you kind of question should you ain't got to question anything to the point to where you say everybody's just not fit to be a parent. In this case, validates that fact. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, hit the notification bell so every time I drop a video, you will be the first to know about it. Let's hit it.
But first, an Indianapolis mother is in jail tonight accused of child neglect, and officials say it is not the first time. Thanks for joining us at 4:30. I'm Aaliyah Blackburn.
And I'm Rafael Sanchez. Fox 59's Jesse Wells explains the suspect was already on probation when police were called to investigate a new case this week.
The suspect's own mother told me she's not surprised her daughter ended up back here in court in Marion County accused of child neglect because the suspect got a slap on the wrist and put on probation for a previous child neglect case 2 years ago. The suspect's mother hopes parents everywhere learn a lesson from this story.
They won't. They won't learn a lesson because it happens all the time. I mean, you got people that have children, that mass produce children, can't take care of them mentally or financially. But for some reason, they can't stop having babies that they can't take care of, again, mentally or financially. You don't have to be rich to have kids, to be able to teach them right from wrong, to teach them how to live according to the scriptures, doing right by people, loving people. You don't have to be rich to do that. That's just common sense. But if you're not teaching that, if you don't know it, if everything is woe is me, I'm a victim and I hate men or I hate women or I hate, black folk, black men, black women, this, that, and the third, when there's a message like that out there, women ain't no good, black women ain't no good, black men ain't no good. There's a message out there like that. What do you expect to happen?
Apartment complex along Troy Avenue, an 8-year-old girl called her grandmother crying and saying she'd been left home alone for most of the last 2 weeks looking after her 3 younger siblings, including a 4-month-old. According to this affidavit, the girl's grandmother then called police, who found the home littered with food and trash and no sheets on the beds, leading to the arrest of 27-year-old Tanisha Eccles for child neglect.
Shout out to the 8-year-old who had enough common sense to call her grandmother. This lets me know that the grandmother was still in the children's lives, still in contact with them. Now, if she went over to the house, let's see what this says. You can kind of see, got a phone call at 9:15. Siblings are 6 years old, 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old. They said 4 months old. I thought they said an 8-month-old, but it says a 4-month-old. Okay, but still, oh no, it's 8-year-old. And watching these, watching these children. Interesting. Like I said, shout out to the child that had enough sense. Because you remember there was a story not too long ago where a woman left, but she left her kids alone like for 4 years in the house. And she got it to where they were scared to even look outside. And they found these kids in his home. And I mean, it's a terrible story. Actually, I did a story a couple of months back. You can look it up and find it. But what this says, kids' bed still had the plastic on it. Though hadn't been around for days. Can't really read a whole lot of it, but you can kind of get the gist of what takes place. And shout out to the grandmother for calling the police. I mean, I know that is hard to do for a woman because a woman has a nurturing spirit. They want to believe that things can be fixed, things can get right. If somebody does something wrong and they see that the mistake they made, that they can do better. They'll change their ways. This is why you have a lot of kids who can't get right because the mom or the grandmother will continue to give a person chance after chance after chance to do right. And it's like, shoot, when do you say enough is enough and make them be and hold them accountable for their actions? The government failed these kids. The judicial system, I would say, failed these kids for sure. But we're gonna continue with the story and let y'all so y'all can see what I'm talking about.
At the time of her arrest, Eccles was on probation after her 6-month-old daughter died from blunt force injuries at her home here on Renton Street. In 2019, Eccles was initially charged with neglect resulting in death, but later pleaded guilty to neglect resulting in injury. In 2023, Judge Jennifer Prince Harrison sentenced Eccles to 2 years of home detention and 2 years of probation, but allowed her to avoid prison time for her daughter's death.
And I think it just goes to highlight that this is one more example of a larger issue that continues to swirl within the city.
Indy FOP President Rick Snyder says the case illustrates how the revolving door of justice, especially involving cases with children, puts other kids in danger.
We are failing to take these issues of child abuse and neglect seriously within Marion County.
While the suspect's mother initially sat down and talked to me about the case, she later requested we not air that interview. Still, she encouraged everyone to do what she did at these apartments this week and call police if they suspect child neglect or abuse is taking place, even if it involves their own family. Finally, the suspect is temporarily being held without bond. She's due in court for an initial hearing on Friday. In the meantime, prosecutors are seeking to revoke her probation. Jesse Wells, Fox 59 News.
Jesse, thank you.
Nice looking young lady there. Like I say, got some modest clothing. Nice to see young sisters looking modest as usual, like they should be. But one of the issues I got, one of the points I thought about. Number one, she got this. I guess she got put on probation a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago. But she has a 4-month-old child, which means she's still procreating after being charged and convicted. And yet they allow her to keep the children. She had a 6-month-old die of blunt force trauma. And she got probation. How is this possible? Just, pleaded guilty for neglect. And they said, okay, now you can go ahead and live your life and keep these kids because we sure in the hell don't want them. So you can have them. You decide to have these children. So you go ahead and, what I'm saying, I guess, keep continue to raise them and maybe you'll take them all out, which is crazy. But let me kind of look a little deeper into this. And I hit the chat GPT and I just pulled up her name, Tanisha Eccles. And it said, here's the latest on Tanisha Eccles, a 27-year-old Indiana mother recently arrested on serious child neglect charges. Now, the grandmother said that, or the police said when they went into the house that one of the children was drinking out of the toilet. Now, this is a story. I think I saw it on the People magazine, in the People magazine article, which is like discussing. I should have went to the Daily Mail so I could have got more details, but may do it later. It said in June of this year, police were alerted when her 8-year-old daughter called their grandmother saying she and her siblings, including a 4-month-old, had been left alone. Officers found the apartment in disarray, children unsupervised, a toddler drinking toilet water. Okay, oh. No bedding on the beds and unsanitary conditions throughout. Eccles was, say, legal backstory. Eccles was nearing the end of a 2-year probation, only 41 days remaining. Can you imagine 41 days? Can you imagine her not being caught for the next 41 days and she's off probation and free to do what she want to and leave these kids neglected? But again, glad the kids did the right thing. The grandmother did the right thing and called on her. It says she only had 41 days remaining, stemming from a 2019 child neglect case. So this was like 6 years ago. 6 years ago. So she done had 2 kids since then. And the 8-year-old was a baby when this happened. So 8-year-old was probably what, 1 or 2? And she had another child. Then a couple of years later, she had another child. Who is procreating with these women? That's what I want to know. I want to know who the dads are. The dads need to be I ain't gonna say that, but sterilize them damn selves for procreating with women like this. It's in which the infant daughter tragically died from blunt force trauma due to neglect. She originally pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of neglect causing serious harm in 2023, avoiding prison time in exchange for probation. Now facing 4 felony counts of child neglect, arrested in June 9th, held without bond for violating probation. A bail of $4,000 was set, but remains detained due to the probation breach. Good for them. She should have been. I don't, you know what? And I hate to see the kids, and who knows, the grandmother cannot afford to take care of the kids. I can understand if they ended up in the system, in the foster system. But I mean, what's worse? Because see, people be, and here's my thing. Hold on, let me. Authorities have filed a motion to revoke her probation, which could lead to prison time. Eccles is scheduled for a court appearance in July. They said what? No, it said this Friday, right? Possibly starting in August. This case has sparked widespread outrage and raised serious questions about child safety and the effectiveness of probation systems handling previous child neglect cases. The tragic reoccurrence going from a child's death due to neglect to multiple children being found unsupervised highlights systemic failures in supervision and interventions. Tanisha Nichols is now in custody at Marion County Jail. Further legal developments, including probation, revocation, and trial outcomes, are expected in the coming months. So she's an Indiana mother who's in prison right now, who's in jail, awaiting court dates and anything else. So this topic brings up a broader issue again, and it's about people who are not fit to be parents. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. I know some people with missing chromosomes who can have children and be just fine. But women like this, who has already been through the system because of the death of a child, and yet she still has children after that. You have these feminists, womenist, freedom people, equal civil rights people who will tell you that she should be able to have as many children as she wants to, as long as she can do it. I'm here to tell you that's a lie from the pit of hell. She should not. But cases like this is what brings up the subject of eugenics. I don't know if y'all know what eugenics is, and eugenics movements, throughout in the United States since the early 1900s that is like documented. But I know there's a video I had bought a few years ago called, I think it was called Ma'at 21. And it was about the eugenics movement. A lot of people say, some propaganda into it, Democrat, whatever. But the point is, the stuff that they were talking about in it, it was factual. You can validate it with facts of the eugenics movements throughout the United States in its history, trying to prevent people from having children, certain people from having a bunch of kids. People should be able to have children. I understand, but everybody can't do it. Everybody can't drive. Everybody can't have certain jobs. Everybody can't go to certain schools. Everybody shouldn't be having children. If you can't afford it, if you cannot afford a child mentally or financially, or if you don't have the resources or the support group to actually help you, not hinder you, but actually help you in order to raise a village, take a village to raise a child. I always remember the scripture say it pretty much says that, but folks don't want to believe that. I don't need nobody. I can do it by myself. I'm a single mother. I can do this. I don't need no help. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Everybody needs help in everything they do. People need people. And when you go against that, that's when you increase your chances of failure into what you're doing, including parenting. But we feel as Black people that the eugenics movement back in the past was based on race alone, which it probably was. Because back then, what you have Margaret Sanger and all those people back in them days believed that Black people were inferior mentally, like for sure. So they definitely should not be having children. It wasn't really the problem of our mental inferiority. It was the problem of the resources or lack thereof that we could have. So that would create an issue. Okay, that create issues if people over here get the education, get the funding, everything they need that they need to survive at this level, and but these people over here on this side of the tracks get number scraps from these people. What do you think is going to happen when you can educate and these people and their families stay together and everybody's happy and living, tranquil life? And over here, you allow people to starve, allow people to fight, claw, and scratch for everything that they need. What do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen if your textbooks are the 10th edition and their textbooks are the first and second edition? What do you expect for them? What do you expect to happen? You see what I'm saying? So make it make sense. It doesn't make sense on that standpoint. But so the problem is, but when you have issues like this, can you validate the eugenics movement? Because that's what they'll use. That's what y'all got to understand. You have to think. Here's what y'all people don't understand that like to holler this racism thing in this country. Your quote unquote enemies, our enemies, study us. They know us. They know our tendencies. Why? Because pretty much they created the tendencies. They created us because this is their country. They created a country, brought in slave labor, low income labor, making sure the majority of you aren't on their level. So they created the whole system that we're in. So yeah, they study us, everything that we do, pick out the good parts that they like, leave the garbage with us, and continue to try to thrive while all we do is holler racism, and we sit here and big up trash culture of multiple baby parents. Uh, let's just say rap culture, hell, slutting, 304ing, gang banging, drug use, stuff like that, beating on each other. We promote that kind of stuff, and then our culture. That's like a badge of honor, being from the street, being hood, being hard. Other cultures, it's not like that, but yet they thrive. Those who don't promote that stuff, they thrive. You might think your local rapper or your favorite rapper is making money. He's not thriving. She's not thriving. They're struggling just like us. They're just able to put it on video and make it seem like it's great. Them folks with money, read the book Millionaire Next Door. That's what I'm reading right now. And the next Millionaire Next Door, which I'll be reading as soon as I finish this book. The first thing that I'm seeing in that book is rich people, money is quiet. People with money, you would not know they have money, the majority of them. Majority of them don't buy a Rolex watch, expensive watch. As a matter of fact, what they say, like a Timex watch, it's like the most, and this is book is probably like 20 years old, but still, it still hold true today that back then, like I said, rich people drove, like wore like Timex watch, drove a Ford, had the house that they bought when they kids, when they got married, and still have the house that they bought when their kids were born. Their kids grew up in, they still live in that same house. They may own a business or they invested, things of this nature. You wouldn't know that, walk around in regular t-shirts, sweatpants, or blue collar, or have blue collar businesses. You wouldn't know that they have at least $2 to $10 million stashed somewhere in assets. No debt, house paid off, cars paid off, paying taxes, and that's it. And still not trying to do too much of their money, living well enough that they can be comfortable. That's what real money do. But like I say, we promote all this violence and vulgarity and thinking those people with got big gold chains and walk around with money phones. Man, that ain't money. That's changed to those people who really got money. But anyway, back to the having babies and eugenics. Let's look at a little history let's go through a little history of eugenics, if we will. It says the history of the U.S. government. This is from Chat GPT. I tell you, I look at this all the time. I do Gemini on my phone, but in a laptop, I do Chat GPT. The history of the U.S. government sterilizing women, often without their knowledge or consent, is a deeply troubling chapter rooted in eugenics, racism, and systemic inequality. It spans more than a century and disproportionately targeted poor, disabled, indigenous, and women of color. Here's a summary of the key periods and events. Again, if you ever got a question on anything, get on here at Chat GPT and any kind of AI app, man, that stuff will, hey, and anything on here to give you links to even look it up so you can verify and validate what's being said on here. It's in the early 1900s, the rise of eugenics in the U.S. The U.S. eugenics movement promoted selective breeding and sterilization to improve the population. Influenced by social Darwinism, it labeled many poor, disabled, and marginalized people as unfit to reproduce, which is true in a sense. The way they was using it is hypocritical because they created the circumstances. They helped created the impoverishment. People want to say ain't no such thing as racism. Racism is gone. Ain't nobody stopping you from doing what you want to do. When you talk about a eugenics movement where women were sterilized without their knowledge, see, stuff like that is why you can't sit there and say there is no racism. And this stuff was happening up until, I'm gonna say, the 70s. And I'm gonna keep going into it because I remember in the 70s and 80s, and this is stuff I heard from like my mom and other, black women, older black women, which are children. You should listen to your elders, let them tell stories of the, what I'm saying, let them tell their life stories and the history of this country, because a lot of things that happened back then, it can repeat itself if you forget it, if you allow it to just fall into the dust, because eventually you're gonna kick up some dust and the history is gonna come back and nobody's gonna know what to do or how to do it. Like I said before in another video, there is a way for slavery to come back. There is a way for it to come back. It may not come back in 2025, but give it 2045, 55, you know what I'm saying? 21, 35. It's a possibility that slavery can creep its way back into this country. Why? Because by that time, in the next 2-3 generations, maybe 2-3 generations, people are going to forget about it. But it's going, and how it came about in the beginning, but it's going to creep in a different way. And before you know it, people will be back picking. I saw a video where people were picking garlic for like $2.50 a bucket, right? That's kind of like sharecropping. And I mean, stuff like that. And that was what's called illegal migrants were doing it. But you got to think about it. You kick them out or you leave them here. It don't necessarily have to be with black people with slavery. It could be them, period. Matter of fact, it could be going on now. We don't even see it with the illegal migrants. But just because they're going through it and we're not going through it, we don't think it's around. But that stuff is still around. Anyway, let's get back to the eugenics. Now, check this out. This is what's funny. In 1907, Indiana became the first state to pass a law allowing forced sterilization of those deemed mentally ill or defective. Now, this young lady here, where is it at? This what the lady we talking about? This Tanisha lady. Where is she from? Let me scroll back up here and look. Uh Here's the latest on Tanisha Eccles, a 27-year-old Indiana mother. Coinkle huh? Ain't that a coincidence? Interesting. Very interesting. Because in 1907, Indiana became the first state to pass a law allowing forced sterilization of those deemed mentally ill or defective. So when you looked at this Tanisha Eccles case, and somebody might record, say, look, this is what I heard the judge them say behind closed door. They know I was recording, and the judge say, "Man, this is why I need to bring eugenics back." People are gonna be in an outrage, uproar, but then the question is, what you mad? I mean, would you be mad? Are you mad because he said that? Because a story like this was one of the reasons why it should be. But the problem is you got the people, you don't know who's heading these organizations, who's going to control this. So will they be actually doing it for legit reasons or just doing it for racial reasons or whatever? But anyway, let's continue. By the 1930s, over 30 US states had similar laws. This stuff was law. This is why I tell you, I don't go by law. You go by moral, because laws can be changed at any time. Because people like say, well, that's the law. Well, the law said they could sterilize you if they wanted to back in the day. Legally. There was nothing you can do about it. So be careful about what you say, because it'll come back and haunt you. Now I said from 1927, Buck versus Bell Supreme Court. Landmark case where the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Virginia's sterilization law. Carrie Buck, a young woman institutionalized for being feeble-minded, was forcibly sterilized. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes famously and infamously wrote, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Damn. This ruling legalized and legitimized forced sterilization for decades. Again, what do you do when you have a woman whose child died for blunt force trauma? Now, the system failed them children because they gave her probation. That heifer should have been locked up. Kids put into the system, but then foster care, they say it's like a little prison. So that needs to be revamped. The whole childbearing, child rearing, child raising, uh, child guardianship system needs to be revamped and better. Because think about it, the children are the future. You have to make sure the children get a solid foundation. If the children can't get a solid foundation, then you're doing them a disservice. And then, so why are you bringing them into the world anyway? And no, you don't have to be rich to have children. Like I said, you got to be, because when I had my first child, what were we, like 18, 19 years old, living in Canterbury Village, had no money, raggedy cars, car with a cracked manifold in it. You know, said car with radiator leaks. Living in a 1-bedroom apartment where the heat didn't work, air conditioning didn't work because it was on some kind of boiler room system, something like that. But I and my children's mother were doing things to try to better our lives. We were working, going to school, you know, trying to make, trying to better ourselves in order to provide for ourselves and for our children, because we didn't want to be in the hood for the rest of our life or in the projects and stuff like that. We were trying to, that ain't where we come from. I mean, I ain't gonna say that where we come from, because it is how our parents started, but we saw our parents get themselves up out of low income to get up to where they are, as adults and as we was raised. And so we had that foundation. So that's how we started and that's how we built it. And so now, like I say, with our children, try teaching them the same thing. So like I said, you ain't got to be rich to have kids, but you got to have some kind of foundation and support group to help you grow. That's how it's supposed to go. So 1930s and 1970s, mass sterilizations across the U.S. Over 60,000 sterilizations were performed under state eugenics programs. Targets included poor white women, African Americans. See, so it's just poor people, period. Poor people, period. PPP, never mind. African American women, Native American women, Latina women, women with disabilities or mental illness. like I say, poor white women. It's funny they said poor white women, but then just say African American women. So it didn't matter if African American women were poor or not. They were going to sterilize them anyway. Notable examples. North Carolina state sterilized over 7,600 people between 1924 and 1974. Most were poor black women and girls. California performed 1/3 of all U.S. sterilizations. Women in the state hospitals were often coerced into surgeries. Mississippi appendectomy, a euphemism for doctors performing hysterectomies or tubal ligations without consent, particularly on black women. Now, this was going on around, this is what I was talking about earlier. This was going around everywhere, not just Mississippi. There was a time like in the 70s for sure, 70s and 80s for sure, that maybe even the early 90s too, that doctors were performing hysterectomies on young, able-bodied, healthy women. Now, I think most of these women were probably having multiple kids and not have a lot of money, but they was saying that these women needed hysterectomies, and really they didn't. Kind of like C-sections, when they was performing C-sections in the 70s and 80s at a rapid rate when people were having babies, because they can have them faster, charge more, and move on when natural births were taking too long and you got women sitting in these beds for days and maybe weeks at a time waiting to drop these babies. Well, let's just say they need to have C-section. Oh, we have emergency C-section. They were just doing it, boom, boom, boom. But it's all about insurance and money. Everything has to do with insurance. I always remember that. But yeah, like I said, this was something that was going on, especially in the black community, like all over the country, with these hysterectomies until recently, like I said, in the 90s, that people start realizing what was going on and they stopped it. But these are things that were not really, made mainstream media. And then say 1970s, Native American women targeted. 1976 U.S. Government Accountability Office report found the Indian Health Services sterilized thousands of Native American women, many without full consent. Some were sterilized under duress or without knowing the procedure was permanent. Estimated that 25% to 50% of Native American women from the age of 15 to 44 were sterilized between 1970 and 1976. See, they always try to do crowd control with non-white people. But now they come to find out that it's almost backfired because white women ain't trying to have babies. What they finding out is with these Planned Parenthood clinics that they put in the hoods, that these white women were going there getting sterilized or getting these baby deletions a whole lot more than black women were or Hispanic women were. And so now what people understand is when they do that, it can make it to where you can't have children in the future if you do too many of the procedure is done wrong, or it may mentally jack up a person to where they don't want to have children. So now you got white women who having like 1.2 kids when they really want them to have anywhere from 2, 3, 5 children right now, and it's just not happening. So now you're trying to figure out what the heck they need to do. Even Trump talking about giving you $5,000 if you have babies. That's a white woman problem. But like I said, they tried to do that to non-white women, and it backfired on them. Starting in the 1940s, this is for Puerto Rico, U.S. backed programs promoted sterilization of Puerto Rican women as a method of population control. By the late 1960s, it's estimated that about 1/3 of Puerto Rican women of childbearing age have been sterilized. Damn. Many misled about its permanency. In modern cases, in 2003, the state of North Carolina issued a formal apology for a sterilization program. A reparations program was created in 2013. So they got reparations for that. Okay. 2020, whistleblower reported allegations of forced hysterectomies at an ICE detention center in Georgia. Investigations are ongoing. Keys and legacy: forced sterilizations were legal, medical, and government-backed forms of reproductive control. Victims often had no legal recourse or even knowledge that it had occurred. These policies have left lasting trauma in communities and helped shape today's conversations around reproductive rights, informed consent, and racial justice. Now, I can understand talking like this when it comes to reproductive rights, because you should have the right to reproduce, not talk about not the head of your argument being the right to delete a baby. That's not reproductive rights, because you really got the right to have babies all you want to. And shoot, now you could say, well, can anybody stop you from having a kid? What they can't. But if you involve the legal system, the government, it's quite possibly that they can stop you from having babies if they want to make it a law. That's what you got to understand. But yeah, so the question is, with this Tanisha Eccles case, will it validate them continuing or bringing back legally sterilization for people to have kids? I personally, they say you don't want the government involved, and I hate when people say I'm grown and you can't tell me what to do, because I'll be the first one to say, just because you're grown don't mean that people can't tell you what to do. That's why they got laws. That's why they got police. That's why they got judicial system. They got prisons. Because a lot of times these grown folks, they want to do what they want to, then they get locked up. Yeah, somebody should tell you what to do, because a lot of y'all don't get it. A lot of y'all gonna do stupid stuff, do stuff you ain't supposed to. And so sometimes somebody has to save you from yourself, whether you are 15, 25, 35, 65. Sometimes somebody have to save you from yourself and save us from you. And in this case, save the children from this woman who should not be a parent, period. But that's all I'm gonna say about that one. Let me know what you think about this story. Leave your comments below, share with the world, have an intelligent conversation. You know how we do around here. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Those 4 things cost you maybe a couple of minutes out your day, but it means the world to us here at this channel. If you like to support the channel financially, you can always get a super thanks, super chat, super stickers, and you can go to the description box where there are a couple of links there you can click on to help support us that way. Now, if you want something tangible for your dollars, which a lot of people do, you can go to marlonmorale.com. You can hit our Shopify store. Both of those links in the description box too. Or you can just simply hit the shop button below and check out all our luxury products. We have fragrances that last all day. You got beard products, silk products, handbags, much more. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. With that being said, I'll leave you in peace, and I'll see you on the other side.